So as I've said probably 10,000 times in this channel before, these are my favorite games ever. That doesn't mean that they're all perfect. No hate to the awesome Souls games. But today we're going to be talking about my personal least favorite moment in every one of the games. What makes them so stinky, starting with Demon Souls. It would be really easy to say Valley of Defilement, and essentially the whole Fifth Archstone. But I feel like that's way too broad. I want to be more specific here about what is ass and why it is cheeks. So yes, Valley of Defilement sucks, particularly Swamp of Sorrow, and it definitely is home to the worst areas of the game. And to get back to the bosses, you gotta go through those entire areas again, but I gotta say, as horrible as the Valley of Defilement experiences are, at least they're trying something. It's like, it's a design choice. And I actually really like the Dirty Colossus, so there are some redeemable qualities in that section of the game. There are a few runbacks in the game though that feel like the opposite of design. The stairs to the Old Monk are a primary example, although they were allegedly made so horribly intentionally to give time for the primitive multiplayer system to function properly. Doesn't make it suck any less though. But at least there was some thought. Personally, the moment in the original game that made me the most pissed off was the runback to Man-Eaters. Not only are you traveling to fight a janky boss that sometimes doesn't even come down from the sky, there's two of them, you're on a precarious bridge, and the entire runback is pure misery. It also plays gravity tricks with Red Jailer Phantom Freaks. They completely block the path, are totally tanky, give me horrible flashbacks to brain suckers from Bloodborne. It's just the worst of every world, combining the worst components of Demon Souls in a shit sandwich. And next we have Dark Souls. There have been so many lengthy videos of discussion on the downfall of the second half of Dark Souls. I gotta be honest, I never fully bought into that mentality. I have a severe problem with some of the first half of the game, and I also have stuff in the second half that I really love. In the first half, we have things like Capra Demon, so enough said. But with the second half, I only really have a serious problem with two of the four Lord Soul sections. The Duke's Archives to Crystal Caves and Seath are magical and adventurous, and the New Londa Ruins to the Four Kings is a hauntingly awesome dive into the abyss. The complete freedom to choose between these four adds to the openness of the world, even if the sections themselves are linear. I'm gonna be clear with you now though, if I was going purely off of what bothers me the most overall, and what I get the least enjoyment from and the most frustration from, it would definitely be Tomb of the Giants. I think that might be the worst thing in any of these games, outside of Dark Souls 2. But as much as I find role-playing a blind man with giant skeletons and gravity traps all around you to be miserable, I do think it has a slightly better overall design quality than the Demon Ruins to Lost Izalith and the Bed of Chaos. The main problem here is the enemy placement, in the Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith specifically. When the lava sinks from ceaseless discharge and we open the lower area to find literally dozens of Taurus demons and Capra demons placed totally randomly, just in rows in corners of the map, it genuinely almost made me spit out my drink. Like, it was so lazy, it actually baffled me, and it took me completely out of the experience. I just couldn't believe what I was seeing in a FromSoft game. Lost Izalith suffers from a very similar problem with the dragon leg butts, but at least that's a unique enemy for the most part, and not bosses from earlier in the game that are being completely wasted, organized in a row, like chess pieces. Like, it was just shocking, honestly. And to top it all off, we get Bed of Chaos. Just kill me now. I am probably one of the few people who doesn't absolutely despise Ceaseless Discharge, and I think that the Centipede Demon is passable, albeit definitely not good. But even with those minor caveats, this section of the game really does struggle. And now to Dark Souls 2. Frigid Outskirts. Okay, now that was everyone's most obvious pick, and I can't really argue with it. There is no amount of money that you could pay me to do it again. Okay, maybe there is some kind of amount of money, but it'd have to be a lot. But similarly to the previous entry, there are moments in this game that personally annoy me even more. I hate the Gang Squad, the optional trio, and the Sunken King DLC. I think if it wasn't for Bed of Chaos, this would be the most abominable boss creation by From Software, and I can't stand all the hoops required to get to Dark Lurker. It absolutely destroys any enjoyment with a pretty great boss, and for that, it deserves all of the hate in the world. There are a few other laughable moments like Prowling Magus or even Royal Rat Authority, but I mean, come on. It's gotta be the Frigid Outskirts. I will say I feel like I'm one of the only people who defends this, but I actually do enjoy the Blizzard component. The first time I came there, it was a pretty interesting twist, and it was fun trying to find my lay of the land, assuming there would be some sort of checkpoint, bonfire, or lack of reindeers in ass. If it wasn't for the reindeers and there was a slightly more reasonable foe every Blizzard, this wouldn't be so hated. But they are there. and it does suck. Bloodborne is a much tougher one. You all know how much I hate Rom and Mikolash, and those would be mighty fine answers for sure. The fact that Rom can essentially one-shot you with any of the tiny spiders that respawn every time he moves is beyond ridiculous. Mikolash, do I even need to explain myself? It's literally a chase where he repeats the same few lines of dialogue over and over again. I know there's a lot of hate for the Forbidden Woods, and I can see why. It's labyrinthian, massively long, and the shortcuts don't really help that much. But I somewhat enjoyed getting lost in the massive woods after being in the city for so long. It was a great change of pace, home to the strange Lovecraftian twists of the game, and exploding snakeheads. Ew. Dang, this game is solid. I'm really struggling to find... Okay, no, who am I kidding? I had an answer from the start, but this is only from personal frustration, not due to poor design necessarily. I hate dealing with the massive groups of brainsuckers. My insight has gone down about 20 since this started, and I can't move. This stupid part of the game. Stupid, dumb, dumb, stupid. I might be mildly annoyed, if you couldn't tell. But the Winter Lanterns almost ruin entire levels for me. Similarly to the Frigid Outskirts, it blocks certain optional areas from future playthroughs because I'm just like, yep, I don't want to deal with that. People complain so much about the jailers from Dark Souls 3, but these Winter Lanterns are far, far worse in my opinion. Anyways, if they were just adjusted to not annihilate your health bar so quickly, I'd have a lot more fun with them. But considering how quickly you get decimated, I think that it's unreasonable with just about no fun to be had. At least they're intimidating though. But additionally, with the limited healing resources of Bloodborne, the way they just drain your health instantly makes me think about all the times I'm gonna have to go back and farm those pigs' buttholes. And it's just like flashbacks to the War Man. Maybe if this was a Souls game and there was Estus, it wouldn't be quite so bad, but it's just horrible having to waste your healing on the stupid frenzy mechanic. Now, Dark Souls 3. If we were going by most disappointing moment, that's really easy. We're in one of the best DLCs of all time, the Ring City. You're walking through and you see this gorgeous view, battling a knight with two fiery greatswords on a flowery cliff, overlooking all that you've overcome. You stroll into the boss room, ready to be faced with a glorious challenge. Not only does the boss room waste that magnificent view from just outside in place of a generic church-like building, it fills it with a completely generic NPC boss. And if you were lucky enough to get a real human opponent, they just lag all over your screen. At least, that's been my experience. So yeah, that moment probably left me the most empty in all of Dark Souls 3 because I was expecting so many bangers at that point, but that's not really fair. It wasn't so miserable. Other disappointments though, the fact that Archdragon Peak is hidden behind such an arbitrary and impossible to discover wall of emoting for an extended period of time in one very specific location. Ancient Wyvern obviously kind of sucks, but I'm gonna have to go with the obligatory Poison Swamp. I actually enjoy a lot of the components of this one, like the escape to the higher grounds to get lay of the land. The minigame with the 3 flames is pretty fun as it forces some light exploration, but the fat rolling and slow walking with massive enemies that aren't affected by the slow is just not acceptable at this point in the series. I'm gonna need that fat rolling removed, and this area would be pretty okay overall. Sekiro is one of the tightest video game experiences I've ever had, but that doesn't mean there are no flaws at all. One is the unbelievably arbitrary steps needed to fight Owl Father, one of the best fights in the game, but there's almost no way a player could ever get to it without a guide, which I just don't like. Melania is a super well hidden boss, but it's not so ambiguous that you could never get there without help. There are a few reused bosses and mini-bosses for such a short game, in harsh contrast with Elden Ring's gargantuan size and massive arsenal of optional areas. Sekiro is super streamlined and a lot shorter, so fighting the false corrupted monk right before the true monk is a really big letdown for an otherwise super thoughtful game. Dragon Rot is a pretty interesting idea that I don't think was fleshed out to its full potential, but it definitely didn't destroy my enjoyment of the game in any way. The real weak point of the game for me though is the Guardian Ape duo. For a game that so masterfully handles one-on-one battles, it was simply foolish to throw in a dual boss like this at a player, putting 2 erratic phases of a boss into one cacophony of stupidity. Is it even that hard? Not really, you just span the firecrackers, but it is a noticeable blemish on a nearly flawless masterpiece. And finally, Elden Ring. So obviously my initial pick would be Godskin Duo, and yes, Godskin Duo is still horribly designed. I hate that there aren't 2 distinct health bars, the summoning feels arbitrary and goofy, they both are fast and spam range attacks, but they are actually decently manageable at least. And there's a certain amount of enjoyment in taking them on with a summon or a friend as you each get to fight a different boss one-on-one. Still ass though. Wait, did I mention it's ass? The underground mazes certainly put their hat in the ring with how unbelievably dumb the one-shotting chariots can be at times, plus with their BS hitboxes and random movement. So while Gods Can Do It is probably the worst design part of the game, my most hated currently is Melania. Just kidding, Melania haters, she's pretty awesome. No, but it's actually close. It's the, I don't know how to pronounce this, the Ordina liturgical town that leads you to Melania. This place is the most stupid in all of Elden Ring, and it's not even close. It's completely random with invisible enemies. There's about nothing to love here. I will say the atmosphere is pretty unique, but it tops off one of the weakest sections in the game with the weakest mini challenge, and no amount of atmosphere could salvage the feeling I get of being backstabbed 8 times in a row by invisible enemies. Thank God the Halig Tree is on the other side, because that place is sick. If you don't like Melania or the Halig Tree, well, you probably should just skip this section and I would not judge you. But let me know your list down below. And if you liked this video, check out the companion video that showcases the best moments in these games that I love so much. Thank you for watching, and peace.